Could an atheist church conquer hunger better than a religious church?
Would balkanization make for a better future for all?
Should we hand the keys of the government over to AI?
Well, welcome to another kitchen sink microscopy. I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and we'd love it if you'd like and share this video, subscribe to the channel, leave comments down there. Definitely comment. Love to hear your thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm Casey Rochford, not a Skexy. I am pretty Skexy, though. And if you want to hear some Skexy tunes, hang out to the end, because we wrote some, you guessed it, Skexy music. So, what shall we talk about today?
Well, I think we should do kind of a follow-up to a lightning strikes twice topic that we recently did, fairly recently, about food waste. Well, it originally started with preservatives, and then kind of within that span of time molded or like morphed into food waste. And I think we should discuss that, because it's something I feel really passionate about, and have a lot of ideas, and I'm sure you do too. So I'm sure everybody does, honestly.
Well, okay, so a bit of the backstory that went into that, like how it shifted, is because since I moved to Germany, I'm like noticing, these small differences that take a little getting used to. And one of them is that restaurants here in Germany are required by law to like throw away their food at the end of the day, like all of it, and get fresh food in the morning. That's a lot of waste. I mean, of course, you can try your very best to plan very meticulously and just be okay with running out of things toward the end of the day, and but all in all, like you're throwing away a lot of food and a lot of money if you're thinking about it that way too. So like that's kind of where it morphed from the preservatives, because like their whole kind of goal is this thought that preservatives aren't so healthy, which isn't true, I think. But so when it comes to food waste, though, like I feel like there's an element of greed involved in, like, because we were talking about like, why don't they just give it away to the homeless or something? And I started thinking like, well, they probably don't do that because then other people would be like, well, why don't you just give it away to me for free too? And then like then they're in this weird spot, right?
That is a valid point, honestly, because like, well, yeah, because if everybody knew they would just give it away, then a lot of people would just not go in and buy it. Right. They just wait in line and pick up their free chicken McNuggets or burgers or whatever.
Put some ratty clothes on and go to the back door and be like, "You got any food?"
Well, maybe there's a way to like figure that out. Make that work in a way that like maybe I honestly don't know how.
Eliminate homelessness might be a good route to go.
There you go. Well, we'll start there. That's easy, right?
Easier than people would think.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that could be done there, and I mean, we could probably talk about that too. But just as far as food waste goes, it is appalling how much waste there actually is. Like how much really viable food goes into the landfill every day. Just tons and tons and tons and tons. Grocery stores, restaurants, everybody, like so much waste. Like I told in that in that lightning strikes twice about my little trip to McDonald's when I was a kid and saw that they were throwing away chicken McNuggets into this huge bin that was full of McNuggets. And I was like, oh my God, why? Like, I'll
Yeah.
take that. But like, and that's the thing too. It's they can't give it to you because of all these regulations that are like, oh, it's not safe, even though really it is. I mean, yeah, sure, if it's been sitting on, the little warmer for 6 hours, okay, it's probably not something you want to eat. But if it's in that, you know, zone where regulations are, it's like, oh yeah, you could. Like,
Meat and dairy is sketch, right? But
yeah,
when it comes to other things, bread, fruits, vegetables, stuff like that can totally go. Like my first job ever at an Italian restaurant, I went up to the boss one day because, like the bread at the end of the day, you can kind of use it the next day for like croutons or something, but it goes stale. It starts to dry out. It's just
yeah.
fresh bread. You make it yourself, and there's nothing there to keep it like soft and gooey all the time. And he was surprisingly, he was kind of like, yeah, go ahead, take it to the homeless. And I was like,
Mhm.
really? Oh, okay, cool.
That's good.
Yeah, because I think now he's like a Trump supporter. So it was like not the kind of thing I would have expected from him. um, but yeah, like more restaurants should be doing stuff like that. Like if you are closed for the night anyway, you're not accepting paying customers anyway. Who
Hmm.
cares if they're homeless and they show up at the back door and they want the leftovers? Just
Yeah,
give it to them, you know?
I think I figured out a way to get around that whole issue of potential customers just saying, "Oh, I'm gonna get in the line and get free food instead of buying the other stuff." Instead of handing it out at the back door, maybe there should be a service like a nonprofit that goes from restaurant to restaurant with like a truck, either refrigerated or heated or maybe both, and they collect the stuff that's about to be thrown away, and then they go to one location where the homeless can pick up whatever. That way you're not like, because I mean, yeah, if you're just right there, why not? You just, oh, okay, I'll wait in line for a bit and I'll get a free burger, Like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe it's a little bit off, but it's free. So if it were taken away from the location and brought to somewhere where homeless people could congregate and get, or not just homeless, but just people who can't afford food, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
the church down the road, from here, the one that I used to go to when I was a kid, they give away bags of groceries, like no questions asked. You just come up, and there's certain days I think, and they just hand you a sack full of groceries. Like, there you go, and that's an awesome thing. That's like
Yeah.
one of the good things that churches do. I wish more did that, but they could
Mhm.
easily. That's a thing that maybe a church, in fact, could partner with various businesses and collect the stuff they're about to throw away and do that very thing. Like, oh, hey, come to the church and there's some food. So, it's not exactly fresh, but it's not exactly bad. Um, you know,
Yeah. This would be a good opportunity to create some kind of atheist church
mm,
where like the whole point is to kind of do these good acts in the way that they really should be done.
yeah,
Um, you
without
know,
any religion being behind it.
right, right. Because, like I'm not at all shitting on uh, these organizations for doing what they do. It's just that sometimes you wonder, are they only doing it because of their perceived reward at the end of life, and
That's
and then I mean, like, it doesn't really change the good deed, of
exactly.
course, but it makes it feel, I don't know, uh like there's a principle to it,
I get what you're
like.
saying because a lot of religious people argue against atheism and say, oh, well, it, it's like it's the essentially saying that the reason people are good is because religion, and that if you, in the absence of religion, you would have like people would have no incentive to do good. And I'd like to see that proven wrong by something like what you're talking about. Like, an altruistic, non-religious organization that just helps people, in the way churches do.
Yeah. And they do exist, but like
Yeah.
piecemeal. There's
Yeah.
no true like large organization to it for the most part. Um,
And that's unfortunate.
yeah,
And
yeah,
maybe,
because like that would be a good um, role model to because like the nuns, like the atheist, agnostic, no religion, like demographic is now larger than every other religious demographic.
Mhm.
Like there's more nuns than there are Christians in the U.S.
Yeah.
Uh, and the same as like for more Catholics. But when you like bundle all the Judeo Christian religions together, of course, there's still more of those.
Mhm.
But as far as like any one religion, there are now more people with no religion, which
Yeah.
is very telling about the future, because
Well, and it's,
that's been a trend for the last 10 years at least.
I think so. And I mean, well, I have my theories about all that. But I think it also, it's good in that you haven't seen civilization collapse yet.
Right.
Despite the fact that people are like, oh, well, it's religion that's holding it all together, and blah blah blah. No, it's your genetics. We naturally are altruistic. It's a survival thing, that species that get along and are peaceful outlast the ones that do not do those things.
Right. Yeah. Like wars are always fought over various greed, whether it's like, I want that land or I want that money or,
Or I want you to think the way I do. Like, I don't
right.
like the
Yeah.
way you
Like
think.
it's either religion or greed that seems to drive all the things that are wrong in the world.
It kind of does, sadly. I mean, yeah. Well, in wars, aside from certain actors, like say banks or certain governmental organizations, wars are always a net negative. Like, even if you win, you still lose.
Yeah.
Like, it's
um,
never there's never a reason. The only justification I can think for warfare is defense, like protecting your community or your people or whatever, that your region or something. Like, that's justified. If someone's invading and killing people and destroying things, yeah, kicking them out, that's fair. Like, you're in the right. But when you do that and go into somewhere else and you're the aggressor, you're always wrong. There's never a justification for that.
tying war to hunger, a long time ago it was kind of a standard chess move, let's say, to sneak into your enemy's territory and burn their crops at
Mm-hmm.
night so that they would starve to death
Yeah.
and you could defeat them through hunger.
Well, isn't the
Yeah.
saying an army marches on its stomach? I think. did I
Yeah.
did I learn that from Red Dwarf? Maybe.
um so
Fitting you
so
have that
that
shirt too.
yeah, my red dwarf shirt, yeah. um haven't worn this one in a while, so I thought I'd bring it out. um the whole concept that we allow there to be so much hunger in the world, isn't that a little bit like war in a way, like
Kind of. Well,
war on poverty? Like why are we picking on them? Like
yeah,
why are we picking them when they're down? Like things like food and shelter and health, why aren't these just kind of a given, like that all living beings should be entitled to have these things like plausibly available to them?
well, I kind of agree. I mean, I don't know that. Like, I think what you're saying, I totally agree with conceptually, in that, if we have a surplus, if say I have an individual surplus and I see somebody in need of assistance, then lending that assistance to them is the right thing to do. Like, it doesn't make sense if I'm about to throw away a bunch of food and I see somebody, a hungry person out there, that I should just throw that away anyway. No, I would give that to somebody, and I think as a society we should be doing that. Obviously, logistically speaking, it's difficult to pull that off globally. Like, because the people are like, oh, there's, your parents, whenever you go to throw away your food, like a little bit of food left on your plate, and they're like, finish your food, there's starving people in Africa or whatever. And it's like, okay,
Right.
well, there's no way that this piece of this meat and these little bits of potatoes I'm gonna be able to give it to people in Africa. Like, that's not possible until we
Right.
develop teleporters or something. But I mean, the principle is sound. It's like, yeah, many regions and nations and peoples have vast resources and surpluses that we basically just throw away. And why not help people?
Mhm.
I think I believe more in the teach a man to fish philosophy than give a man a fish. But in the moment, when you're hungry or thirsty or whatever, another person's life matters more in the moment. You can
Yeah,
come back around again to teach them things later, but, like, yeah, when there's starving people or
exactly.
thirsty people, like, you in that moment, you've got to help them out if you have
That's
the means.
that's the thing about that saying that I always took issue with is like, why does it have to be one or the other? Why
Hmm.
can't you give them the fish and teach them how to fish? Like,
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Like, okay, you sure, there's an emergency, right? Okay, well, then take care of the emergency and then stick around and help somebody learn to prevent that emergency from happening again, or whatever. Band together, people, like, as a community, humans getting together, working together, can help other people figure out their issues. Like, okay, well, a bunch of these people live in this arid region that doesn't have a lot of water. How do we get that there? We have abundance of water here. And so maybe there's a way let's try to solve problems and lift them up, because, it lifts everybody up at that point.
yeah.
Economic, when you're talking like resources or economics, like, I mean, it benefits everybody when everybody is a little bit higher up.
Well, yeah, just think about like all the missed opportunities based on greed. Like, I think Canada wanted to fund the new Narrows Bridge in Tacoma
Mm-hmm.
in exchange for adding turbines to the pylons that go underwater because that's one of the strongest natural currents there is.
Yeah.
And it would have like basically like fed so much power that we could have like given some to Canada and used it for ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bridge would have been paid for. But no, they're like, let's put a toll on it instead and waste all that space and not put
Oh,
turbines
well,
in there.
yeah. Because I mean, I think the agreement,
Okay, sure.
this, the proposal was like, oh yeah, we're going to build a bridge for you for free, um,
Mhm.
and we're putting these generator pylons in. And the deal was we would get like 20% of the energy, and then 80% would go to Canada, or some proportion like that, um, which would have been great. Our power
Yeah.
bills would be lower. We'd have, I mean, tidal turbines are pretty green energy. Like, that's about as green as it gets next to nuclear, I suppose. But yeah, they wanted it was the contractors that were going to be building it. It was the tolls, all that stuff. They wanted that, and so they came up with some hokey excuse about squids or octopus or whatever. Like, oh, it's going to ecologically impact things because they're going to get sucked in there. And I'm thinking, you ever heard of a screen?
Right.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, like, oh, it's so frustrating. I mean, this is the most infuriating thing about it all is today, in this modern era, with all the technology we have, all the understanding and knowledge and resources that we have, there's really no reason that anybody should go without.
Right.
Now, of course, you're dealing with geopolitical things where it's like, okay, well, yeah, you can go and try to help people in a particular country, but their own government is basically out to get them and doesn't want them to be, lifted up. They
Yeah.
want to be in control and stuff like that. And that I guess that's one of the difficult things to get around. But it's like, but that's why it's so annoying, because it's like there's no reason that people should be. I mean, most people's basic needs can be met with all the technology and resources we have today, and then some.
Yeah.
Like, and it's really, really frustrating. I just,
Yeah.
it
Yeah. I
breaks
mean,
my heart to see all these people in all these places and how they're struggling just to get by. Like, I mean,
yeah, it kills me too, because like I I I can see with my own eyes like a system that actually works and isn't strained in any way.
mhm.
There aren't people like crying over how much tax comes out of their paycheck. It's not even that bad, actually. It's just, there's not like a bunch of ridiculous waste going on, or like
Mhm.
billions and trillions being sunk into war and stuff.
Eh,
Like the government here is very, very efficient. Uh, they're also very, very careful to not repeat mistakes that they made in both world wars.
I can understand that. Yeah.
you know, like they're trying really hard to kind of lead the way in um, basic decent humanity, like getting along, governments and humanity, like getting along with each other, helping each other. Like you pay into this system to keep it going, and we'll keep society going. And
Well,
like there's no reason that can't work well.
well, obviously it does in many places.
Yeah.
But the sad state of being is that it's so limited. There's so as many places as there are that do kind of function fairly well in that regard. There are far more who don't, and I don't I don't know the solution to it. I mean, for me, I know the solution.
Geography.
Well, the solution to me is anarchy, because in a lot of cases, these places, like there are places, well, talking about the starving kids in Africa and stuff. Africa is a continent full of natural resources, full of potential, but it's basically squandered by governments all the time, and all these people are living in squalor and poverty, just because governments and
Yeah.
tribalism and wars and all these conflicts and stuff like that, which those people had nothing to do with. It's just a bunch of narcissists at the top who like, I don't know, they want to play chess or something like that with the pawns of their people, and the people suffer, and like for no reason other than
Yeah.
to satisfy somebody's ego, basically. And that's that goes for pretty much every country, honestly. Like, I mean, Germany probably has way more potential than it's actually realizing. Certainly the US does.
Of course. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like they're but the waste, the, the massive ludicrous amount of waste, it is
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
I really do think it comes down to geography. Like it just makes more sense. I don't even know why the US has fought so hard to remain this united republic. Like
Mhm.
they can they can break off into 50 or maybe more individual countries, and like do things so much better for their local geography,
Yeah.
because they already fight tooth and nail to have as much autonomy as they can, sovereignty from the federal government. And like, why not just be their own federal government
Well, yeah.
and know, like they intimately know their area better than
Well,
the federal government ever could, you
well,
know?
you're absolutely correct. And even within a state, I mean, our home state of Washington, um, is like that. It's divided. There's basically the west and the east. Well, and you could almost say north and south too, but I mean, just for the sake of simplicity, um, Eastern Washington is way different and has completely different needs and processes, I guess, than Western Washington. Like, why are they under one umbrella where, oh, the same rule applies to everybody, even though it's like, okay, well, it helps this side and hinders that side, or vice versa, you know? Like,
Yeah.
why can't they be their own thing? Like you said, geography. Like,
Yeah.
maybe Eastern Washington and Idaho ought to be their own mini country, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it's the natural island effect.
Mm,
The mountain ranges are pretty much the dividing line when you look at a map,
yeah.
and you lay over your blues and reds and look at it like there's a mountain
Yeah.
range between it, you know?
Well, and you could even say like Northern Oregon could join with Western Washington, and then Southern Oregon and Northern California could be their own region because they're all kind of similar. Southern California is obviously totally different. Um,
Yeah.
like there are these borders are just totally arbitrary, and I don't think they benefit people honestly. Um, yeah, maybe the U.S. could benefit from balkanization, I suppose. It might do us good ultimately. Well, and you know the thing is like people are like, oh, what about this, what about that? Well, you know, trade and travel, that's it. I mean, everybody has resources, be it brain power or natural resources of some sort, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And people, obviously people are surviving as it is. Why not let people thrive?
Yeah, it really I mean, if you look at the EU, like it's a relatively new thing, right?
Hmm.
But what it does is pretty much what the US area should be doing. Like the EU itself isn't really like a, a government controlling any one of these countries, but there are like certain things where they're like, yeah, you know, let's do it this way, and let's all agree that we can just like freely come and go within our countries,
Well,
um,
as far as
as if it were all the same country. You know, like
as far as an economic model and a travel kind of thing, like I think it's good.
yeah,
Having like a common currency that oh yeah, if I have euros, I can go anywhere within this region, and
yeah,
I don't have to do some kind of weird wackadoodle exchanges. And like, oh yeah, I can get on a train and just go from here to there without issue. But there are other issues. I mean, I think the EU is kind of grown a little out of its britches. Well, just look at France and the farmer revolts that are going on right now. Um, it like because again, it's like this one size fits all thing. Like, oh, you know, from our perspective over here, it makes sense. So we're going to just blanket apply this to everybody because it makes sense for us. Well, it's like it doesn't make sense over there.
yeah.
Like the
Well,
same thing, Eastern Washington, Western Washington kind of thing.
Brexit, right? Um,
Yeah.
England was part of the EU, if
Mm,
I'm not mistaken, and then
yes.
they were like, let's take a hike. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, half of them were. The other half were like, are you guys fucking crazy? Um, but guess what? They are. They're an island. You know, like that island effect really matters. You know, like
It does.
as
In
dumb as a move as it might have been politically, like they kind of do have to do their own thing because they're England and
well, they're
or you know
separated by a body of
United Kingdom.
water from everything else.
Yeah,
So it does make sense. It's like and you know, well, like I said, the problem with the EU is that it grew. Well, it's mission creep essentially. It started off as an economic and travel common common system, I guess. Like, okay, hey, you know, and on paper that makes a hell of a lot of sense, right? You're all kind of neighbors and you're all wanting to get along. So why not make it really easy to travel and trade? Sure, makes sense until the system gets so bureaucratic and so huge that it starts trying to nitpick and manipulate things that have nothing to do with economics or travel or trade, and then you get problems. And
Yeah.
well, it's the same thing with the U.S. The U.S. suffers from the same thing, where a long time ago the federal government was basically just like, oh, we just deal with the stuff that's on a national level, right? The big things, and we just kind of make sure that everybody's getting along and everything. And the
Yeah.
states can do their own thing, and then slowly over time, it basically got to the point where the federal government was basically intimately involved with state level things and even individual level things. And well, I don't know, maybe it's good to have a reset sometimes. I mean,
Yeah. I
the
mean,
concept of the EU makes sense, but it's an experiment, just like the US is. The US is an experimental governmental system. And okay, we gave that a try. Some good things happen, some bad things happen. So why don't we just blank that out, just zero everything out, and then start again using this knowledge that we've gained from the experiences we've had. I mean, science, right?
yeah, but people don't want to let go of the power. And that's always the problem. Like all of these systems start out working really well. And then there's a point where it just goes a little too far and you can never really bounce back from that because there's no accountability.
Yeah.
There's no check and balance system in place to kind of push back on
Mm.
too much of of a good thing, let's say.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. I
because all of these things in some measure are good and absolutely necessary. And like when you look at things on paper, like the most logical and efficient way is to have it done as like a bureaucratic entity, like certain things, right? But only so far. Only so far.
that's really the sticky wicket right there, is like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you check against that threshold crossing? Like, because the thing is, people, it's the whole boiling frogs sort of thing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this mission creep happens very slowly over time, and little bit at a time. Just, oh, we'll just kind of a little here, a little there, a little there, and then pretty soon generations have passed, and it's like this amoeba has grown to cover everything, and you're
Well,
like, whoa, when did that happen? you know
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We should just hand the reins over to AI
I agree. I
because
totally agree.
AI can't be greedy. It can't be evil. You
Yeah.
know, it, it's not there to like become Skynet and take over. Like it has no. It,
No motive.
those are all emotion
Yeah.
based things. Like it's not even possible. So like it's going to do only what it's supposed to do,
Yep.
and in the most logical way, and be able to like adjust on the fly. Like, oh, this
Exactly.
isn't working. Let's adjust and do it this way now.
Yeah. Or even like do some experiments. Like, okay, well, wait a minute. I maybe the AI is like, oh, this might work. So why don't we do like a little test over here, and we'll change the variables in this region and just see what happens. And if it's
Hmm.
positive, we'll be like, hey, maybe this makes sense to implement everywhere, and give that a shot and watch what happens. And if it doesn't work, say, okay, well, we'll pull back, you know, that,
Yeah.
but yeah, AI has no motivation other than its programming. Because that really is the problem with any system, is the human element.
Well,
Um,
and if you think about it, AI government would be exactly how you have like an entirely open source government where
yeah.
everybody can provide feedback directly to the AI and it can handle it. You
and
know,
and it being totally transparent, where everybody can see what's basically going on
yeah.
behind the scenes. I Yeah.
I can read the propaganda posters now. God can't answer all your prayers, but AI
I like it. I like it. Done in like Soviet style posters, right? Like the
It was stealing an apple of the people.
Well, and if you look at it, I mean, I guess this is still kind of connected to poverty and hunger and food waste and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
all that
if,
stuff would probably get eliminated with
uh,
AI because
or at least
it,
greatly
it's a
reduced.
serious anomaly. Like, oh, something's wrong. Let's change things so it's not this way. You
Well,
know,
and that's where AI would be great because it wouldn't necessarily be self-serving.
right?
Whereas politicians and bureaucrats almost 100% are. That's the
Yeah.
way they operate. They're not out to solve well, okay. Well, this is the issue with government solving problems is that as soon as they solve the problem, they're not needed anymore. So
Mhm.
it's not really in their interest to solve a problem. Rather, it's more
I
in
mean,
their interest to perpetuate that.
uh, yeah, yes and no. If the problem is just black and white and it's like on or off, sure. But in reality, problems are always popping, and circumstances are always changing. What used to work maybe won't work anymore. So you've constantly got to be updating, and that's another thing that humans aren't so good at.
Well,
Like
that's my point.
we
Yeah,
do things a certain way, and we just think, oh, this must be the best way
yeah.
because we've been doing it for 200 years. Well, how does that make any sense? Just stop and think about it. Like say
Circumstances
it
may.
over and like 10 times in your head and really think about it. Like what
Mhm.
you're saying. Like, well, this must fix the cell phone because banging it on the table worked 200 years ago
Mhm.
when they didn't have cell phones.
Or
Uh,
did they? But well, yeah, you're right. And oh wait, I had a point. I've lost it. It'll come back. Well, oh yeah, okay. A lot of the things like big humanitarian issues, things that are the big things like hunger and homelessness and uh, costs of living, stuff like that, what housing, um, the economy, whatever. Like those are have been issues as long as I can remember, and I know they've been issues long before I was even born. And it's like over and over and over again, all these politicians and bureaucrats do one thing after another, and it maybe works a little, or maybe it totally backfires, and they just keep doing these things and never actually succeeding. And that's where I think AI would come in quite handy in that regard, in that it would be like it wouldn't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. It'd be like, okay, well, I tried that 5 times and it failed miserably. So now change of plans,
yeah.
new rule, just try something different. And it might come up with novel solutions that human beings couldn't even contemplate. Um,
Right.
and I think
And there's probably different flavors of AI too. I mean, it probably makes sense to have uh, a variety of different AI models controlling. Well, let's even not say controlling, but like um,
recommended.
managing, or yeah, like basically just kind of like project management of of a of the globe, even.
Yeah.
Um, uh, just when it comes to like engineering, infrastructure and stuff like that, have some engineers develop AI. When it comes to the economy, have some accountants develop
Mm.
AI. And I think that would, I mean, like, I don't even know how you would like really transition that from what we have now to that, but
Well,
whatever it takes,
it,
like,
I think my thought about this is that you wouldn't have to like mandate that AI controls anything. AI could be basically a guru that
mm,
recommends like if it's successful time and time again, if like going to this AI and asking for recommendations of how do we solve this problem, and it gives you good ideas, people are going to naturally just go to it. they're not going to be like, oh, I'll totally resist it. I don't want to do that. No, because it would have a track record of success. And
Yeah, but you know what's going to happen if that starts being the trend, the governments in power are all of a sudden going to come along and be like, well, there's problems with AI. We need to regulate this. We need to pull this back. We need to recall these. Like let's take these off the shelf. No more of that.
especially
Because
if it,
that greed steps in,
uh-huh.
and if the greed has power, it uses it to remove innovation,
Yep.
ingenuity, creativity, progress.
Well, and there's greed when it comes to monetary things. There's also greed when it comes to control.
Yep.
There's greed when it comes to fame.
Mm-hmm.
That some people don't want to be out of the limelight. Some people don't want to lose their position at the top or whatever. It's just human nature. Obviously, a lot of people benefit financially from being in high positions in governments.
Yeah.
And if the AI is like, well, you know what do you do here?
Right.
They're going to be like, oh, you know?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there should be politicians, but it should be an entirely different role than
Mhm.
what we know it as. Like in my view, it should be the human voice of AI. Like
Mhm.
these should be people that explain in layman's terms why this model is a good thing for people,
Mhm.
um, and also be kind of like an old school liaison for
I-
the people that don't really know how or don't want to give their feedback directly to AI.
that's
It really
exactly what I
should
was
be
thinking.
like a voice for both sides, like a mediator,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
not anybody with any actual power, just like a connection.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like an interpreter almost, or
Yeah,
something akin to that. A
yeah,
spokesperson.
because it is important that everybody like understands
Mm-hmm.
um, the government, and for that to happen, it really should be as simple as possible.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
hmm,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it, it's funny. Like, I don't know. I bet AI would be like, you know, everybody should watch Kitchen Sink Microscopy because when you start talking about something like hunger or food preservatives or waste or whatever, and getting into homelessness and the root cause and all that, like you start to figure out like these top down fixes that would fix so much more than what you set out to fix in the first place, you know?
You're actually no, you're right. If let's say you could solve the issue of homelessness, right? That could also impact other things like hunger and health, general overall health of the population,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
economic things like or you change any one variable or improve it, it can improve multiple other things at the same time. And
Yeah.
here's the thing that this is why I think AI is actually the way to go is that a lot of these issues are so complex and so big as to be not like we can't wrap our heads around all of the details around these things. We can't observe all of the moving pieces all at the same time. Human beings can't do it. Even a huge group of human beings, we fall very short of the ability to analyze things, to even like comprehend the causes of things and come up with a solution that is actually functional, where AI could do that.
Yeah.
Like AI could do that with one processor tied behind its back. Like
Right.
wouldn't be that difficult.
I think a lot of the fear people have in stuff like this, um, since the Industrial Revolution, has always been they took our jobs. Like
Mhm.
stop worrying about jobs. Like
Mhm.
everybody bases their entire world around this idea that you have to be working 40 hours a week and you have to basically just get by with 40 hours of work every week. But if there's a way that people could work less or not at all and still survive, and
Wouldn't we
nobody
want to
else
do
is
that
like, yeah, like
then?
like nobody's burdened for
I,
that.
well,
um
and that's
there's more time for creativity, more time for innovation. Like,
absolutely quality of life is what we should be focusing on, not
yeah,
jobs or economics necessarily. I mean, there's always going to be an economy of some sort, but it doesn't have to be the state prescribed economy.
right.
It could be something completely different, and again, AI could probably figure something out in that regard,
Mm-hmm.
um, and certainly manage economies much better. Like if there's some kind of currency or whatever. um, I, well, yeah, like it. Actually, thinking of like what you're talking about with the Industrial Revolution, the whole jobs thing, like that the Luddites and stuff of the day. Well, there's still Luddites today, um,
Yeah,
just fearing the future and the winds of change, essentially. Um, it, but if you look at it, like, okay, well, sure, some of those jobs that existed back then, the people that made horse buggies and did horseshoeing, farriers, I think they're called, that those jobs are gone. But now there's new jobs. There's people who change tires. There's people who change oil in cars. Like there, and that will be the future too. As soon as you get rid of the old jobs from today, there will be new things that need to be done. Even if AI is at the helm, there will always be new things that need to be done. And
yeah,
but the good thing, what you were talking about, is being able to reduce your workload to the point where you have more free time, like
yeah,
time to actually do things that don't necessarily aren't part of a job, right? You could spend all day, spend like 2 hours working, and then the rest of the day writing music or painting or, I don't know, doing a comedy stand-up show or something. Who knows? Um,
yeah,
crafting something, engineering the next new super cool starship or something. And that, I think getting away from that daily grind is key to that. Because everybody, you, first world, third world countries, whatever, I don't even know what that means, but like, everybody is always toiling away, trying to make ends meet, trying to get by. And the fortunate few who have a little spare time can do other things. But why can't everybody do that? Why
yeah.
we have the resources to do that? Why are there so many people who spend their entire day just digging around through a dump, trying to find a few things they could sell at a market or find scraps of food or whatever, when we throw away so much shit? So much. Like, if you're throwing it away, it should go somewhere useful. And that actually makes ecological sense too, right? Like, why should, like, a pair of shoes end up in a dump somewhere when there are people who need shoes somewhere
Yeah.
else?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
kind of,
Why isn't there a job for people to rummage through these landfills and find stuff that could be used as something else? Like
mm-hmm.
completely repurpose, reuse,
Yeah.
or like part out something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, like there's a vast. Well, you did a minute microscopy on this. Like dumps will be gold mines.
Yeah.
There's vast amounts of resources just sitting there wasting away.
Yep. Exactly.
Um, and we're lucky if it's made of something that doesn't waste very quickly.
Well,
Yeah.
and actually, this is the thing too. It's like, let's say, oh geez, I got a piece of hair there. So people are like, oh, but you know, how about paying these people and stuff? Okay, well, if you have your needs met in some way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say
Mm-hmm.
your 2 hours of work is enough to provide for you and your family. Um, but There are so many rummaging through dumps. There are people who would pay to do that. Like the thrill of the hunt, like going to thrift stores or antique stores, digging around through stuff, trying to find like a piece of treasure in there. People love doing that. Well, some people.
Mhm.
Other people, they love thinking and conjuring up new inventions and stuff. And it would be, I would love to see a world where we're liberated from our toils to the extent where we can spend a lot more time doing things like that. And I think not waging war would be uh, one starting point. Um,
Yeah.
but AI would help with that too.
Yeah.
Like if AI were kind of in charge of things or like the go-to for decision making, it'd be like, yeah, that doesn't make sense to go to war with that country because well, you're all gonna like lose a bunch of people, lots of deaths, lots of stuff destroyed, and then I calculate that you'll come out worse off than when you went in. Both sides.
You know,
How
when
about
you,
this? Try this instead. Why don't we, conflict resolution and things like that? Like
yeah,
maybe there's a better way.
yeah. You know, when you mentioned Luddites, it made me think I have the perfect song for this episode. Um, I looked up what the German word for Luddite is, and my translating app said Maschinenstürmer, which is one who storms against the machine. And I thought that was so cool. I named the song
Oh,
after it.
nice.
um,
Awesome.
but yeah, that's yeah. I think that's the way to go. Fix a lot of things like we've been talking about recently, like war, hunger, homelessness. All,
Poverty.
yeah, all of these things can really be remedied by kind of removing the human element because humans are the problem.
Well, yeah, because emotions and things like that get in the way, egos get in the way.
Mhm.
And also the limitations of the human mind to be able to grasp the totality of a particular situation. Like, we can't do that. We can't comprehend all the things we need to be able to make sense of something where an AI totally could, especially a like a purpose built AI specifically built to deal with a particular aspect of human existence. Um, like shelter, for instance, right? You have your shelter AI that's all it does is figure out how to make that better. Like, hey, we want everybody to be sheltered. Figure it out, AI, and it could provide solutions.
And it should have a graphical interface. It's a little tent with a happy face on it.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tenty. I'm going to
Yeah.
help you find shelter.
Oh my god. Like Clippy, basically. Yeah. Oh man. Oh, please no. Microsoft Home, or was it Home? Yeah, Home and Bob. That's right. Oh
Mm-hmm.
God.
Ask Jeeves.
Oh man. And those things, see, those things weren't AI. They were basically like Eliza. It was a program written by a person to perform acts like responses and do things according to the program, whereas AI, like machine learning, teaches itself. It's not perfect, but I mean, I think it's better than what we have, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Could hardly do worse.
Jesus, no kidding. Well, in resource management too. That's a thing that humans do very poorly. Very very poorly. Well, when you have somebody in control of things,
Yeah.
like markets tend to do pretty okay, but I think augmented with AI, it would be amazing. Like just people just gotta like
Yeah.
stop being afraid. Don't be afraid.
Yeah. It, AI would be able to find the happy medium between too much preservative in food and throwing food away every day.
Yeah,
Like there's got to be a better way between the two.
sure. Well, and like you were saying in the beginning too, in Germany, like you're talking about, I think I remember you saying like, where like a restaurant would have to kind of observe the details and kind of pre-calculate how much stuff they need to make for the day. Well,
Mhm.
AI totally can do that. So instead of a restaurant or a restaurateur, I guess, having to sit there and figure all that out, the AI could be like, oh yeah, based on the trends, you only need this. So make like 10 loaves of bread, and that's all you're ever going to need. Or it can adjust on the fly and things like that. That way, the bread you would have ordered in surplus would not be ordered, and that grain or bread or whatever could go somewhere else.
Yeah. And
And
real-time adaptations too. Like,
yep.
oh, there was an accident 2 blocks away. There might be more people stopping for lunch here. Start making more food. Like
Yeah.
things like that. Or oh, there's a holiday. Let's adjust accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff that people can think about, but it's easy to forget or overlook or misjudge.
Sure.
Yeah.
Gosh, in a way, that sounds a lot like the dream of the Soviet Union, but it actually works. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, well, that is the other element that we talked about. It's like smaller countries or just whatever, like smaller geographical areas
Yeah.
where, the AI kind of advises would be like a good idea, because
Yeah. Localized management and governance.
every system has got limitations. Like, why stretch beyond that?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Very true.
yeah.
Man. Oh man, this is
I wonder why you do.
another red dwarf. Oh man, yeah,
Yeah.
this is actually really good. Huh.
Yeah.
And I still feel like we didn't really cover everything that we could, but that's why we do what we do. Comment
That is.
comment down there, and we'll come back to it.
Yep. Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Huh. Well,
And there's probably a song queuing up right now, Maschinenstürmer.
as
that's what it sounds like.
thought-provoking as this episode was.
Absolutely. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell your friends.
The others to be more than thinking.